let's talk about closures. So this seems to be a topic that trips people up quite a bit, especially when they're starting out learning JavaScript. So I thought we'd just go over it and show you a couple examples because I don't think it needs to be as complicated as it seems. All right, so we have a function here, and inside of this function, we have another function. So we have the outer function, create name, and this has one variable in its scope here. And then we have another function here, which is just gonna console log this value of Darwin right there. And then we're returning out this function here. And then we're gonna come down below and we're gonna set a variable here or a label get name, and we're gonna set it equal to running this function. And this function returns out this name here, which is this function. So we're setting this get name equal to this entire function here. So if we were to go ahead and we'll just comment this out and we'll just call this right off the bat here. So we'll save this. If we were just to call create name like this, we'll see that we won't return anything out. So let's run this and you can see we're not actually returning any value here. So we might expect that you would return out the value of this console.log. But really all we're doing is returning out this function of name without actually calling it. So in order to do that, we can go back like we had it before. So now we're setting get name to the function create name, and then finally we're calling it down here. So we should get the value Darwin printed to the console. So if we go like this, come down, you can see here we are getting the value. So you might be wondering why this function name here has access to this value, which is outside of its function scope. So we have our block scope here. So this block here, but we're calling Darwin, this value in here, from outside of this. So this is exactly what a closure is in practice. So this inner function here, when it gets called, it has access to all the surrounding scope of the outer function. So for us, that's just going to be this value. So say we wanted to comment this out instead, and instead we wanted to pass in a param here called arg, and down here we console.log this arg also. And then in here, we pass in the argument that we wanted. So say Darwin. Now we go ahead and save this and run it. We're going to get the same thing. So we have access to this arg as well. So it doesn't have to be a variable or something. You can pass in your parameters here at the same time. All right, so that's basically closure in a nutshell. And it's called closure because it closes over the variable scope at the time the function is declared. So when we're declaring the function at that time, what is in scope? So for us, again, this inner function here, which we're returning out, when it's declared, it has access to this variable here, or if we had an arg here, or whatever we want. So hopefully that gives you a little bit better idea of what closures are. I don't think they're as complicated as people like to think. I'll leave an article I read recently by Kenzie Dodds in the description that I think goes over this pretty well if you're more into written form. But hopefully that's useful, and I'll see you in the next one.